Ladies and gentlemen, I just finished watching The Odyssey in theaters, and I have to be honest about this. I've never been someone who's been a huge movie buff, which may shock you because the content of this channel is all about TV shows, and I do occasionally do movie things, but movies has never been as much of a medium that I care about in my current age. Like, I'm in my late 20s. I care about TV more than I do movies right now, but that wasn't always the case. There was a period of time where I wanted to be a movie actor. There was a period of time where movies were my everything, and I dived deep into everything. And it's been a while that I've been back on that wavelength. And I just went to see The Odyssey, and now I'm like, oh, damn, I just gotta go down the catalog and see every freaking movie now, man. So I'm going to break this down. I'm not going to bring up any spoilers because I don't really think there's much that I can really spoil. It's not one of those sort of things, but there is a lot that I want to talk about. So this is spoiler safe, I will say. But man, there is just so much I want to get into with this. This was such a fantastic film. So I'm going to break it down in the pros, the mixed-ish, and then the cons. That's kind of how I'm going to try to do this. So I'm going to start with the pros of this movie. I walked out of this movie obsessed. I thought it was such a fantastic film. Will I say it's Nolan's best film? No, for me that's Interstellar, which I was blessed to have seen in theaters when that came out, just like I'm blessed to see this in theaters. After Oppenheimer, which I didn't get to see in theaters, I was like, I'm never ever missing a Nolan release again. That's it. I was like, I'm done. Once I missed that, I was like, I will never miss another one in theaters again. And I watched this movie in Times Square. Watching a film in Times Square, it's not LA or Hollywood or anything like that, but it is a really nice experience. They do have really good theaters there, but I gotta tell you, I couldn't find any in IMAX 70mm that were available. Everything was sold out. Literally everything. Even the regular screenings were like pretty much fully sold out. I did get an HDR screening in a premium format at a Regal theater in Times Square, but unfortunately I didn't get to see it in 70mm, and I'm actively planning the next time I go to see it in 70mm, because again, like I said with Oppenheimer, I told myself I'd see Christopher Nolan, but more or less, I told myself I'd see 70mm IMAX. Specifically, I didn't get that experience, and I gotta tell you, this movie was so good, and I think would have been so much more enhanced if I had seen it in 70mm IMAX. So I kind of did go on a little bit of a tangent there, but all of that is to say, this movie is amazing, and it does fit. There's not many movies that I could say fit into the echelon of phrasing that you may consider epic or masterful, or I'd even argue a little bit of masterpiece. I don't know that I'm going to say it was a masterpiece, but it is in that conversation 1,000,000%. Like, there's no argument against it being in that conversation. It's a very epic film, and that's because it comes from very epic source material. I haven't read Homer's The Odyssey. I do know it was, I think at some point, a school requirement of mine, I think, but I was not a good student. I never was a good student. I definitely didn't read it. The only thing I knew, I'm just going to be honest with you. You guys are going to make fun of me. I didn't even know the Trojan horse thing was just like fiction. I kind of thought that was real. That tells you how much I know about the Odyssey, number one, but also how little I know about history, which is bad. I probably shouldn't have admitted that on camera. I kind of always thought, for some reason in my head, I thought the Trojan horse was like a thing that happened, and then I was quickly humbled when I Googled it after the fact and realized that it wasn't. But that just goes to show where I was. Before I went into this film, I didn't know what to expect at all. I knew the Odyssey existed. Like, I knew what that was, but I didn't know what it was, if that makes sense. I couldn't tell you anything. I didn't know the character is Odysseus. I didn't know that was a character. I didn't know Penelope is a character. I didn't know any of these people were characters in it. I had no idea, like, genuinely. So I kind of just went into this fully blind. And I feel like as someone who did, I was genuinely gifted with what I got to see. It was such a wonderful film. I had no idea that the Cyclops thing existed in the Odyssey. I had no idea. So when that happened, I was like, oh, this is insane. I was freaking out. And I feel like more than anyone around me, I noticed that this was something I noticed. There was multiple times I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck? In the theater. And everyone's just like chilling, like cool, like, do they all know about the Odyssey? Maybe they do. I don't know. I do understand that a lot of people are aware of what the Odyssey is and all of that sort of thing. But for me, this was just a shock. Whatever. Anyway, all of that is to say, coming in blind to the concept of the Odyssey as a whole, and coming into this with no expectations whatsoever, other than one that we're going to get to in the mixed, this was just so epic to me. It was so wonderful. And I think it just, honestly, when you think about movies that Christopher Nolan's made, I think this is it's in that conversation as one of his best. Again, like I said in the beginning, I think Interstellar personally is his best. That's my favorite of his movies. But this is in that conversation along with Dark Knight and, Inception and things like that. It's in that conversation. But this one does feel different than those movies. There's not as much mind bending going on. This is much more, it feels almost like Christopher Nolan's almost magnum opus in a sense. This feels like just like a true epic. And if there's any director I think that could do the story, which I've now learned about Odyssey justice, it's Christopher Nolan. And I really do think he did. I think he delivered in every front. And that's because everything worked. The cinematography is Christopher Nolan cinematography. It's beautiful. And as someone who, as you guys know, one of the things that I've kind of tried to sell this channel on, like it's the brand of this channel, is high quality. I'm using a Sennheiser MKH416, which is a microphone that's used on a lot of movies. I'm using a full frame camera. I'm using the Sony FX2 actually here. I care about quality when I make the content. There's still things I'm working on, but I say all that to say, as someone who really cares about quality, watching a Christopher Nolan film is like a gift. It really is like a gift. And that's why I really want to see it in IMAX 70 millimeter, but it was near impossible in New York City to do that. We'll see about, I'm back in my hometown now, so we'll see about back here in my hometown. But man, like, I really want to go back to see it, but even without IMAX, this was just such a beautiful movie, and it comes down to where it was shot. This movie was shot on location, just like Christopher Nolan always does, very practical everything. This was shot in places like Greece. Obviously, this is about Ithaca. So this is shot in Greece. This is shot in Italy, Scotland. There's a couple others in there. I forget all the names of the countries that this was shot in, but the big ones were Italy, Greece, obviously Greece, and Scotland were some of those. And it just really fucking shined. It really did. There were so many technical moments in this movie where I'm like, how the fuck did they pull this off? And more importantly, like, what the hell was this like to film behind the scenes? Because it was just really something special, and you could tell this was a technical marvel. And I've heard behind the scenes, and this is one of those things, this is what I love about this movie and movies and TV as a whole. I love all sides of it. I love watching it, but I love learning about how they did it. That's actually bigger to me. I enjoy that part of it. So I'm really interested to see. I have heard Christopher Nolan on the record say that this was a very stressful, very tough film to make, and you could clearly see why. Everyone delivers in this movie. As a lot of people have talked about, there are a ton of A-listers in this movie. It's just like a lot of Christopher Nolan movies as of late. The whole cast is A-listers, even the people that have 2 seconds of a scene in there. You know, the biggest hitters in this movie is Matt Damon, who is Odysseus. He's fantastic as Odysseus. Then you have Anne Hathaway, who is Penelope. Then you have Tom Holland, whose character's name, honestly, is escaping me. It's like Tom something. I don't know. You guys might come after me, but again, I'm not really familiar with with the Odyssey, which is crazy to admit. But then you have other characters like Jon Bernthal is in this movie. Elliot Page is in this movie. Who else? Zendaya's in this movie. You have other characters in this movie. There's so many others. Robert Pattinson is in this movie. There's so many. It just goes on and on. Travis fucking Scott's in this movie. And all of them deliver, even if their delivery is only like a few seconds on screen. They all just do such a good job. I'm pretty sure one of the Safdie brothers was in this movie. It's just, it really was a masterclass. And when I say that this film is epic, this exactly goes to that point. You have amazing cast delivering amazing performances where they do not feel like they're just there to like take the bag and run with it. They're actually genuinely really great performances. You could tell were got out of these actors. And then just the scope of this movie, the practical sets, the cinematography, the story overall, which I'm learning more about in the Odyssey. It really is, in every which way, an epic, and that's what it felt like, and on screen it was just a masterpiece. So that's, I think, my biggest pro of the film is that whole bundle. It's what you'd expect from a Christopher Nolan film, but on steroids. I'm gonna be honest with you, I never saw Oppenheimer, and as a matter of fact, I think I might go watch it tonight. I just want to see some of his other movies. And I know that's a little bit of a debated one. Some people say that Oppenheimer is like their favorite movie. Some people say it's one of their least favorite Nolan films. I'm interested to formulate that opinion for myself. I know nothing about, I know what it's at large about, but I don't know anything about the film other than Josh Peck's in it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know much else. So I'm interested to see. But the point I'm making is at all of this is this really does like fit that Christopher Nolan caliber in a strong way. And for me, this was like an easy 9.5 out of 10. I fucking cried in this movie. And I don't cry other than Toy Story and a few other things. I don't cry, which, believe it or not, Toy Story 5 did not get me to cry. But anyway, this movie actually got me in the finale. Again, I'm not going to do spoilers in this review, but the finale of this movie was just so fucking strong. It really had such a wonderful message and was beautiful to see. And it was one of those movies where, honestly, I kind of saw where the story was going to go. Like, I didn't know the Odyssey, but you could kind of figure out what was going to eventually happen. But the payoff was so worth it. It was done just so well, and I enjoyed every minute of it. It's going to sound ridiculous. I often rate movies based, if I see it in a theater, on my, I call it a P scale. And it's how much am I willing to tolerate the discomfort of having to pee through a long movie? Like, if it's a bad movie, I'll just get up and go whenever. Even if I barely have to pee, I'll just get up and go. But if it's a good movie, I'll hold it in until it's uncomfortable. And I don't want to go through my bathroom habits, but unfortunately, I did have to go in this movie, like, really bad. And it was at a scene with Robert Pattinson's character, which I'm glad I did. I went when I did because it wasn't really that important of a scene. But I rate my movies on a P scale. And unfortunately, because my bladder couldn't hold strong enough, I had to go, but I tried everything not to go. Literally, I was holding this in. And this movie passes the P scale. Like I said, this is I think I said this is a 9.5 probably out of 10 for me. This was such a good movie, and it broke my heart that I had to get up. I was saying I'm sorry to everyone. I was like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I've never been to a theater alone, by the way. This was the first time I've been to a theater alone. It was an interesting experience for me. But anyway, so I rate movies on the P scale, and this did pass, even though I had to go. This passed the P scale. But also the bigger thing to me is immersion. There is something in the bad that we are going to get to with immersion, but from a story perspective, there was nothing that took me out of this movie. And it's actually going to go into all the controversy that this movie had going into it, because believe it or not, that's how I knew this movie was coming out, was the controversy online. We're going to save that because it is definitely not a positive of this movie. And unfortunately, the criticisms of this movie are stuff that have nothing to do with the fucking movie. They have to do with bigoted people online, which we are going to get into for sure. But the overall point I'm saying is, while we're in the pros, is this movie never broke my immersion once. at all. It just didn't do it from a story perspective. There was something that wasn't the criticism, like the online backlash. It wasn't that broke my immersion, but something we're going to save for the cons. So we will get to that when we get to it. As far as the pros, though, there's not much else I could say. All the A-listers had hell of incredible performances. Jon Bernthal really stood out to me. Tom Holland really stood out to me. Obviously, Anne Hathaway is a powerhouse. Obviously, Matt Damon is a powerhouse. And there was never a moment where I was like, Matt Damon didn't deliver there. Anne Hathaway didn't deliver. No, they delivered. Matt Damon, if you guys know that reference, he killed it in this movie. I actually thought this was probably his best performance. I'd argue maybe even same with Tom Holland. They're so good. And Jon Bernthal, too. It goes to the point, this is the last thing I'll say in the pros. All of the A-listers who you'd think were just there to get a bag were really there and really, really gave it their all. And that's because who wouldn't want the chance to work with Christopher Nolan? Who wouldn't want that? I literally think anyone would want that opportunity if they had it in front of them. So I can't say anything bad about that there. So those are my pros. Now, next, we're going to get into the mixed, and we already started to talk about it, but this is by far my biggest mixed, and it has to do with the controversy. And, you know, I really don't think there is any version of me making this video without somewhat addressing this controversy, because, again, it is how I knew that this movie was coming out. I saw rumblings that his next movie was going to be the Odyssey. I saw that for a while, so it wasn't a shock that his next movie was the Odyssey. But where I really knew this was coming to theaters this week was with all of the insufferable comments online giving backlash to the actors and actresses in this movie. So we have to talk about it. As you guys probably know by now, a lot of the controversy online stemmed around Lupita Nyong'o's casting in this movie, as well as Elliot Page's casting in this movie. And it's all bigoted, bullshit, disgusting stuff. Now, look, I am not one, and I do not ever want to get political on this channel. I don't think this is a political conversation, though, at all. I think this is just, you're a fucking idiot. If you actually go into this just looking at two casting decisions that you don't like for whatever fucking reason is, and just basing the whole thing off of something you don't like because you have hatred in your heart for I think it's disgusting. And I think it's not disgusting like, oh, you don't like Elliot Page because you don't think Elliot Page it makes the most sense for the role. It's beyond that. It's people who just outright are like, Elliot Page is in this? Lupita Nyong'o is in this? Like, what? Are you kidding me? It's because they don't think that their casting was appropriate for the roles because Lupita is black and because Elliot Page is trans. It's fucking disgusting. And not only is it disgusting, the funniest thing about this movie, there's something funny about all this, and it's not funny. It's just funny, like, it makes me laugh for the idiots out there that are ruining this movie online because of these casting choices. The movie is so fucking good because the casting is done right. And here's the thing, like, this is for me, but this should just be a thing in general. Casting should be about performance, especially when it comes to a fictitious story that isn't based in reality. It is another thing I in some sense, and I try my best to understand all sides of this, but in some sense, I do understand that in Hollywood, there has been examples of historic figures being represented by people who do not look anything like those figures. I understand people's break of immersion with that sort of thing. I can understand that conceptually, but I do not understand the hate that this has gotten for no fucking reason. It's disgusting, especially when this is based off of fictitious characters. Sinan or whatever Elliot Page's character is, it's a fictitious character. I forget Lupita's character's name. She's playing two different people in this movie. It's one everyone's up in arms about because depictions of her were white in the past. It's fucking this is fiction. Who cares? What should triumph over anything, no matter what, is performance. period. It should be performance-based entirely. But unfortunately, we live in a very hateful society where people don't even know why they're fucking hating, to be honest. And it's disgusting to see. It really, really is. Because what, like, really? Do you really want to give this attention? The fact that you do speaks so much volumes of it. And you know what's funny? I do just have to say this. This is a lot of the hatred of this casting is coming from people who think that, like, the other side of the spectrum are the miserable Karens and all of that stuff. Every side of the extremes are bad. And I'm sorry, I have to say this. It's just that it's gotten so out of hand, and it really is a shame. You feel for these people who are in these performances getting endless shit online when they actually gave incredible performances that shouldn't matter what creed, color, race, anything. It shouldn't matter. None of it should matter. We're so past this. I don't understand why this is a thing. It really is disgusting. I did just have to go off on it because having seen the movie, first off, those two people who were casted in those roles, Elliot Page and Lupita, they're only in a few minutes of the movie. Elliot specifically is only in like 4 minutes of this movie. Like, there's one scene in the beginning with him, and then there's another scene later on where he gives a bit more of a monologue there. So first off, I don't understand that. I mean, I understand that people are hateful, and they're just saying this because they just want to hate because they think it's Hollywood woke bullshit. But honestly, please just watch the movie. You'll realize these are just masterful performances, and even if they weren't, that shouldn't matter. That shouldn't matter. Again, I can understand if the casting was really, really, really stark. Like, you had Bane played by Elliot Page. Like, that doesn't make sense because Bane is supposed to be this big, huge sort of guy. You know what I mean? Like the casting there would be a little confusing, especially because, like, in that regard, I mean, Elliot Page is a pretty tiny, like, skinny person in that regard. But so like, that is an example of something where I'd be like, okay, that casting choice is weird. But that wouldn't be because they're trans, you know what I mean? Or I think Hades may be the character. I'm not sure the character Lupita Nyong'o plays. I can't remember offhand. But even her character, because other depictions of her in the past were white, people are taking that as, oh my God, they casted a black woman for this? Like, are you kidding? That's disgusting. And again, it doesn't matter because she did such a good job. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter on every front. It doesn't matter. I think performance should triumph anything, and it doesn't matter what you look like or who you are for that to be the case. It's such bullshit. I can't believe this is part of it, but honestly, again, the only reason I knew this movie was coming out this week was because of this stuff, because it flooded my timeline to the point where even I called my mother, Mom, I love you if you're watching this, and I'm like, oh, I just went to see the Odyssey. She's like, oh, is that the one with the drama with Elliot Page that's going on right now? And I'm like, yeah, that's how everyone knows this right now, and that's a shame. Because it shouldn't matter, because Christopher Nolan literally put his fucking dick on the table for this movie because it's such a good fucking movie. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter on every front. And that sucks that this is getting roped into this conversation. But it just is. Like, it just is part of this conversation because, again, I feel like this baggage unfortunately carried with the movie. There were other examples in there that carried with this movie, such as people saying that the armor, the boats, and all of that stuff wasn't realistic or anything like that. But we're talking about a fictitious movie with a fucking Cyclops in it. So, like, what kind of crack are you smoking that bothers you? I don't understand that. And again, all of this is to say, to my point in the pros, none of these things that people were so bigoted and disgusting about online, or even the set pieces, the art, whatever, none of it broke my immersion. And I think that's the biggest thing. I can understand if there are elements of things where it takes you out of it, where you're like, that doesn't make sense. I do understand it, but there was never a moment of that in this movie because this is a fiction. This is fiction. This isn't real. So on the stuff of the armor and stuff, that doesn't really make sense. And the bigoted stuff just has no place in existence. It's disgusting that we're still having this conversation about stuff like that because performance should, again, dictate everything. And also, I just don't understand how we don't have that kind of empathy. Whatever. Anyway, all that is to say, I'm not someone trying to get political on this channel, and I hope that comes across that the way I'm conveying that, I'm not trying to say I'm pro-right, pro-left, pro-anything. I'm not like, as a matter of fact, I don't like this shit. I'm not a political person. That's just not who I am. But I will call what it is what it is. This is fucking bullshit. And it doesn't take someone who is conservative or liberal to say that. It just takes someone with a fucking open mind to say this is disgusting. That's all I'm saying. Whatever. Anyway, so that is the biggest thing that I would say I am mixed on about this movie, because unfortunately this is now associated with the art piece itself, which sucks. But when you actually go and see it, it doesn't matter anymore. And it's funny because this movie is getting the last laugh at all those idiots online saying that stuff. Anyway, so there is that as far as the mixed goes. That's kind of a big one, but I had to address it for sure. I had to talk about this. So then I'm trying to think if there is anything else in the mixed. I've seen a couple people say this. I guess I'll put this in the mixed. I've seen a couple people say that the dialogue is written in such a way that it's like modern dialogue in a fictitious in a movie that's supposed to be set all those years back and all of that stuff. But again, like, it goes back to the fiction thing that I just talked about. So what? This isn't real. It's not real. Like, it doesn't take me out of it. If Tom Holland says, "Where's my dad?" instead of "Where's my father?" I don't care. If they're not speaking with accents, I don't care. Like, it doesn't bother me. I am immersed in this story. That's my biggest thing with anything. If I'm immersed, it doesn't matter. And I think Christopher Nolan and the whole crew did such an incredible job with the immersion in this movie that doesn't matter. So that's why it's mixed. I do understand it though, but that's why it's mixed. Now we're going to move on to the cons of this movie. And really, there's only like one that I could think of. And it's unfortunately, it's the same thing that Christopher Nolan's been shit on for in the past. The audio. The audio was terrible, at least in my theater. I saw it in a premium HDR, Regal, RGX, or whatever that is. Didn't matter. I couldn't hear a fucking word they were saying half the movie, which really sucks when you have very strong performances and really strong immersion. But this takes me out of the immersion, not because the story is bad, but because I can't understand them. So I left this theater. Actually, I went to go eat afterwards, and I was just, the whole time I was there eating, I was just Googling things that I didn't understand, which I should have been able to understand very clearly, but I couldn't, because I couldn't fucking hear it. It's because the audio mixing is weird, and I understand Christopher Nolan's he's talked about this, and it's the way it's mixed for the yada, 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 yada. Doesn't matter. I can't hear your fucking movie, dude. And this goes to another point. I showed my fiance Interstellar for the first time a couple months ago. Yeah, a couple months ago, like 7 months ago. And she couldn't hear the audio. She was like, this is weird. Like, I have to turn up the volume for the audio, but then when there's action sequences, it's so loud that we have to turn it down. That was this movie in a nutshell. I couldn't hear a fucking word they were saying. But then when, like, I don't want to get into spoilers, there's a scene where, I'll just say it, the Cyclops screams in this movie. And it's like, I think I just lost hearing from that, but I can't hear the fucking dialogue. That's really bad, because there were so many moments with, specifically I noticed it with Anne Hathaway, where she'd be talking at a quietish room voice tone or whatever, and I'm like, what the fuck is she saying? I can't hear her. And that happened multiple times throughout the movie, and that sucks. That is like, it is a con. Like, it is a genuine con, because if I can't hear your movie, I don't know what's going on. But the good thing about this movie is the plot is straightforward enough that when it all wraps up in the end, you know what's going on. You understand the theme. There were many scenes in this movie where I just didn't understand it. Not because it didn't conceptually make sense, but because I can fucking hear it. You could piece it together. I think this movie is actually a big pro about this movie is this isn't like a movie you really need to like think of to understand what's going on. It's a very simple story in and of itself, but it is hard as fuck to hear because of the dialogue. So yeah, that is, I think, the biggest con. The only other con I will say is the way that this story was told at times felt like a random collection of scenes. And it also added to that confusion along with the dialogue, where I was like, Why were we just there and now we're here and now we're here? There were a couple moments like that. I wouldn't really consider this too bad, but I would consider it a con because it was a thing. Overall, though, I know I spent a lot of time on the bigoted shit, but the only reason I bring that up and feel so passionate about it is because that really stained the way I perceived what this movie was going to be. Not because I was like, oh my God, yeah, Elliot Page, or not because of that, but because that's all I was seeing. People were being like, oh, he's finally like what? This is what I heard a lot. Oh, woke Christopher Nolan finally goes really woke and blah, 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 blah. I saw a lot of that, and it takes you out of it because that's all. There was a lot of the discourse because unfortunately, in what I do here, I am pretty dialed into that side of X, Instagram, all of that stuff, the whole movie, TV show stuff like that. And either my algorithm is fucked or this is just like in general, the discourse that's going on. But this movie has unfortunately just drawn up controversy around that. And that is unfortunate because once you see it, it's not. First off, it's not bad because like it's just genuinely it's a non-issue. I guess that's the overall point I'm making. It was a non-issue in general, and it's a even bigger non-issue when you go to see the movie because the performances were so good. I saw a lot of people saying other stuff. I saw a lot of people saying that they didn't like how there was all A-listers in there and all of that stuff. I didn't have any complaints about that. I think there is a fine line where it could break your immersion and be like, oh, another A-lister, another A-lister, another A-lister. First off, I didn't even know what Travis Scott looked like, so I didn't know that was him until I Googled after, to be honest. And then I realized I kind of put two and two together when I heard the Travis Scott song, that maybe he had an affiliation. Then I saw the credits. I was like, wait, whatever. And I Googled whatever. Anyway, the point I'm making is, it didn't take me out of it. And I could see how it could for some people. But anyway, all of this is to say, this movie was really a great movie. Unfortunately, there was some baggage in there with how it was perceived by some shitty people online. But in general, I fucking loved it. I loved it. This is easily one of my favorite Nolans, easily one of my favorite movies of all time. And I am trying very hard now to go see it in IMAX 70mm because it was that good. Man, wow. All right. With all of that out of the way, I'd love to hear from you. If you saw this movie, I'm curious your thoughts. So definitely drop them down there. If you haven't, I don't know what you're waiting for. Go see this movie because it really is good. I hope I didn't ruin any of it for you. These are just my thoughts. I had to brain dump. But with all of that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.